Hi, welcome to the Humane Society of Sonoma County's orientation for the School of Positive Rewards. My name is Lynette Smith, and I'm the Canine and Behavior Training Manager for the shelter. We have a whole new program that we're doing this year under the umbrella of the Academy for Dog. The Academy for Dog has 3 different programs. The first is Positively Puppy, and you can think that that's for puppies that are under the age of 4 months, so sort of like preschool or kindergarten. Then the next level we have is the School of Positive Rewards, and you're watching the orientation for that, and that basically is first grade all the way up through high school. Then we have Positive Electives, and that's alternative classes. Maybe your dog needs to go to an alternative type of class. We have those available. We also have classes online, and then we have plenty of electives. So after you've finished your level 1 and level 2 classes, your dog will be able to go to tricks classes or scenting classes or variety classes that we offer at the shelter. You'll also find on our website many resources. First, you'll find a resource library, and that's got a lot of great behavior and training tips that are handouts, and they're free, and you can pass them out to your friends or read them yourselves. Also on that same page, we have a box where you can email a trainer and ask for specific questions. And if you're looking for a particular handout that's not listed there, you can request that as well. Also on that page, you'll find something called FAQs, the facts, and those are for any questions that you may have for dog training. For example, what vaccinations do I need, and where do I need to bring them? Or what are the new COVID restrictions? Or how do I get a refund? Or can I bring an extra person to class? You'll find a lot of answers there on the facts page. What I'd like to cover now are the things that we're going to go over in this orientation. The first thing that we're going to go over is a little bit about what positive training is, and we're also going to talk about how to create an appropriate learning environment, things to bring to class. We also are going to talk a little bit about the training sequence and the specific rules we have for positive reinforcement dog training. And we're going to talk a little bit more about food delivery and then reinforcement and what that is. And then I'm going to give you a little bit of a homework assignment. So those are the things that we're going to cover today. Here at the Humane Society, we follow positive reinforcement training. And what I'm going to do right now is briefly just break down a little bit about what positive reinforcement is about, and also talk with you about 2 other schools of thought. So a popular school of thought is the dominance or pack theory. You may have heard these words alpha or beta. And that theory basically has been debunked. Tools used with that are prong collars and e-collars. Another school of thought is what is called balance training. And so balance training still uses the theory of pack and dominance, but with that they also mix in some positive reinforcement training as well. Here at the Humane Society, we follow science-based, reward-based, relationship building dog training. We're all about bridging that gap between you and your dog and helping you learn how to read your dog's body language and then learn how to respond to that appropriately so that you and your dog can have a great relationship and communicate freely. So for example, questions that people will often ask is my dog jumps up, or my dog won't come back to me. And all of those things really get started with building a relationship with your dog. And what we're going to help you do is clearly communicate with your dog so that you can understand each other. The next thing that we would like to cover is how to create an appropriate learning environment. Really important to arrive 5 to 10 minutes early. You want to make sure that when you arrive at class that you're nice and relaxed, that your dog's relaxed, that you're not stress-free and rushing in at the last moment. That's just not a good way to start off class with your dog. I really believe that your class starts in the car. So before you get out of your car, you just want to take a deep breath. Know that you're going to go in, everything's going to be okay. And remember that this is not a performance. This is a time for you to gain knowledge, and we are not judgmental here at all. You're here to learn, and please don't feel like you have to perform for us in any way whatsoever. We really want you to help create a relaxed environment. We also would like you to remember to keep space in between dogs when you're entering the class so that we can give them distance to keep them nice and relaxed. During class, this is not a time for dogs to socialize or to meet other dogs, because the whole goal of this class is to get your dog to focus on you. If you can engage your dog you can do anything with that, and that's our primary focus of training. Now we'd like to go over a list of things to bring to class. First thing that you want to do is you want to make sure you bring some chewies or Kongs, and you're going to be really happy that you brought those there. So it's very difficult for a dog to work for an entire 60 minutes, and in fact we don't recommend that. So there will be down times for your dog to take a mental break, and during that time you'll want to give them something to occupy their mind. The next thing you want to do is bring a water bowl and water. So we're able to provide that if you've forgotten that, but I really think it's a good thing to always be prepared and to remember that you want to take your own water for your dog. There's a lot of public water bowls out there, and they're really not safe for your dog. So it's another way of reinforcing your relationship with your dog, that they can turn to you and talk to you, not talk to you, but they can turn to you and request water, and you'll be able to provide that for them. The next thing is food reinforcers, and we're going to talk a lot more about that later on in the class, about how we have a really fun game that you're going to be able to do with your dogs. But basically, you want to bring 3 times as many as you think you are going to need. The training instructors will have extra to give you, but always just bring extra and be generous with rewards when your dog's acquiring a new behavior. You want to bring about, I would say, if you get a hot dog or a string cheese, you can take it long ways, cut it 4 times, dice it up, and then you're gonna have 40 treats. Because for a dog, you could give a dog 1 hot dog and they're like, yay, I got 1 treat. Or you could take that 1 hot dog and cut it up to mini pieces, and they're going to say, wow, I got 40 treats. So for dogs, they don't weigh them out. They just wanna say, oh, I'm getting a treat again. So bring lots of treats. You wanna make sure, in the room that you're working in, the surface that you're working in, you want to make sure the dogs are able to see the treats. So something light was going to work on a dark surface, or vice versa. You'd want to have a darker treat on a light surface. You also want to make sure that you don't bring something that's going to take them a long time to chew, because we want this to be a quick reinforcer and a quick reward. So something really smelly is always really good, and it really should be about the size of your fingernail. It doesn't need to be a really big treat, but yeah, crunchy usually doesn't work very well. Also, you want to make sure that you bring a treat bag. So this is the treat bag that I use. It's a really large treat bag, but I really would like you to invest in a treat bag. We have treat bags that you can borrow if you want to try out different styles, and that's fine. But I think that when you're learning how to use positive reinforcement, it's really important that you have easy access to some place where your treats are. And we'll show you different styles of how to get food for your dogs, but when you're beginning, it's really easy to do that. We also would like you to bring toys, and bring at least 2 of your pup's favorite toys. And again, it's that time when they have a break. We want something familiar so that they can help relax and reduce their stress. And we'd also like you to remember not to bring one of those squeaky toys, because if one toy squeaks, all the dogs in the room are going to be trying to get that toy. Also, another thing we'd like you to bring is actually a squeaker. So listen to this. Ooh, we had a dog in the room and she responded to that. We were going to use the squeaker to get our dog's attention. So you can get these, they sell them separately, but you can also just have a dog destroy a toy and then get one out of there. You want to make sure that you also bring a blanket, a towel, or a bed, and something for your dog to lay on and feel comfortable. One of the very first lessons that we're going to learn is how to settle. That's an important skill for a dog to learn. So if they have something comfortable, it's just going to make everything easier. You need to make sure that your dog has a collar, and with a quick release buckle, that would be awesome. Any kind of collar is fine. And remember, prong collars are not allowed on our campus. You also want to make sure you bring a leash. So this is interesting. I always want to tell my students that the leash should be for them, not their dog. So this is my leash, and I can use it with all of my dogs. I can use it on a variety of dogs at the shelter, but I want something that's going to feel really good in my hand. I prefer these leather leashes. It's thin. Anything thicker, I don't feel like I have a good grip on. So I really would recommend investing in a leash, and we will have some resources available to you where to purchase a leather leash or another type of leash. But get a leash that feels good in your hand. So remember, it belongs to you and not your dog. finally, with that, I want to make sure you understand that retractable and flexi leads, those are the leashes that there's a thin cable and it stretches out on, that those are not allowed on campus. They can be very dangerous for your dog or for your fingers, but they also keep tension on your dog's body, and it's not a good way of teaching a dog how to relax in a relaxed way on a leash. Let me make sure I covered everything. Oh, finally, you want to make sure that you have a harness for your dog. And if you have any questions about a harness, our instructors are able to help you fit the harness for your dog. I do want to show you a couple that we recommend. The thing that we use right now at the shelter, it's something called a Y harness. So how a Y harness works is this goes over the dog's head, and then this comes around like this. So it makes a Y shape on their chest. And the reason that we like these harnesses is because you see the dog's legs go out of here and there isn't any pressure on their underarms. So some of the other harnesses that came out before, the Sensation harness, we call those an H harness, where they're straight and then they go around the dog's chest. They can rub on their underarms and they're not that comfortable. So we really like this style of harness. It's got a clip on the front and also a clip on the back. If you have a really small dog, then I would suggest you definitely want to get a harness like this. This is a soft harness. It's really comfortable and it has an attachment on the back. So I've had a lot of questions, my students asking, isn't it better to always have a front clip harness? Yes, that's true, unless you have a really small dog, because if you put a front clip harness on them, they're going to trip over their leash. Next thing we would like to go over is the training sequence. So your instructor is going to explain a lot more about this in class, and depending on how your class progresses, we'll add different elements of this during your time. So I just want to give you a brief introduction to it so you know what to look for. The first thing that happens when we are working with positive reinforcement is we always begin with a cue. And cues can be verbal or they can be a hand signal, and sometimes dogs just pick the cues in the environment and we don't even know that. So you'll go over cues. So you're cueing your dog. And we like to say cue rather than command, because a cue is a request for your dog and a command is you're ordering your dog to do something. And our whole style of training is based on the fact that your dog wants to engage with you and they want to do things, and it's about deepening that relationship. So after you cue, the next step would be to mark that. So we call it a bridge. So we would tell the dog, yes, that's a great thing. You put your palm in my hand, or whatever it is that we have cued the dog. So we have a way of marking. So some teachers are going to introduce marking right away, and some may introduce it a little bit later on. But regardless, you're going to basically still be following positive reinforcement training. Then the next step is you will drop in, what I do is I drop in the cue when I'm teaching a behavior. So this may be a little bit confusing, but for example, we will, and you're going to learn about this, we'll learn what a lure hand is. So the finger's down, and then you have a treat. I'm going to use this. My thumb is down. This is my dog's nose, and I'm luring the dog. So say I'm luring the dog to follow my hand. Then I'm going to do a treat with an open hand like that, and they get it. So if I'm marking that reward, I would lure it in. I'd say yes, and then I give them the treat. So that's basically what we're going to be learning in the sequence. So we cue the dog, we mark the behavior, and then we give the food reward. So there's a really specific way that we like to encourage you to deliver treats to your dogs. And I like to see a nice flat hand. So I've seen sometimes, just in confusion, there's a lot going on in class, we'll give treats like this and like that, or we might hold it, if this was my dog's mouth, maybe I'm holding it over here. But we want to really give the dog the treat and to know that, yeah, you did a good job and here's a reward for you, and we're actually reaching out and giving it to them. So then our dog isn't having to come to us to get something, but we're actually giving it to them and building our relationship with their dog. We like to see a nice flat hand so there aren't any fingers being bit. It's a lot easier for your dog to take something off of a flat hand, and that's a great way to introduce how they should take rewards and treats. I'd also like to go over a few training tips for you. One, it's a best practice not to do all your homework exercises in one setting. You want to break it up throughout the day. So I like to tell people to train as you live. For example, I'm going to open the door to let my dog out. Maybe that's a great time for me to ask them to sit or to do a touch or another behavior that you've learned at that time. So just drop in your training throughout the day. It's a better way for your dog to live. And they're really going to get tired if you go more than 5 minutes of training with them. That's just a lot for a dog to absorb, especially when they're acquiring new behaviors. Also, it's really important. It helps so much if you have your treats prepared ahead of time. So earlier in the video, we had talked about taking cheese or a hot dog and dicing it up into little pieces. What I like to do is prepare treats ahead of time, and then I just throw them in the freezer, and then I take them out when I need them. So they're prepared, because if you're like, oh, I want to work with my dog, and then you don't have any treats, you're missing the part of reinforcement, which is the food, and that's really important. So make sure you prepare your treats and you know where they are ahead of time. I also like to count out the treats that I'm going to use. If you're watching your dog's weight, that's really important to do that. So you are, some dogs are very sensitive to gaining weight, or there may be a small dog. So if you are giving a lot of treats and you plan on working them through the day, then you're probably going to want to reduce the amount of food that they're eating. Some dogs need to gain weight, and so it doesn't matter, but you will know your own dog's weight history and the best way to do that. Even then, I still like to count the amount of treats. I might count 10 treats into my hand, and then I know that I'm going to do 5 repetitions or 10 repetitions of this particular game, and we're done after that. Finally, I'd like to encourage everyone to videotape themselves when they're training. You don't have to show it to your trainer. You don't have to show it to anyone else. I love to record myself when I'm training, and I always learn things, and I'm always horrified about something that I see. And especially when you're learning to train, you want to watch how you cue, your communication with your dog, and then you'll replay it. You're like, oh, that's what the instructor was talking about. Okay, let's go on to reinforcement. So our goal is to reinforce the behavior we want our dogs to repeat, and not to reinforce the behavior we don't want. So we don't ignore the behavior, but what we want to do is show them an alternative behavior to do. So the difficult part for humans is to identify and then stop reinforcing the behavior we don't want. For example, earlier we had talked about dogs jumping up. A lot of people love it when their dogs jump up because they're getting the love and affection from their dog. And so they pet them and give them love, and they tell them what a great dog they are. And so your dog is going to continue to do that because they like that behavior too. So even though you don't want your dog to jump up, you've been reinforcing that behavior. Another thing that you wouldn't do in that situation would be to push the dog away or to say down or no, because for dogs, any type of attention is going to be reinforcing, because that's what they want, is they want your attention, and they don't really understand the difference between no and down and get off. It's very confusing to them. They don't speak our human language, and that what they do speak is body language, and so they're taking a lot more of that, and they understand that you like it. So that's going to be a really fun thing to explore in your dog training classes. Okay, so let me make sure that we have covered everything. I think the last thing that we have to do is give you some homework for the day. So I'm going to give you 2 homework assignments. The first one your dog is going to love, and I've named it Cash Money, because what you want to do is find out what your dog's cash money is, and that means what's reinforcing for them. For example, I'm a woman. Many people assume that chocolate is reinforcing to me. I don't like chocolate, so it's not reinforcing. And if I get it as a gift, I think, well, that person just doesn't know me that well, and I could like throw it in a drawer and not eat it, or until I remember to give it to someone. It's not reinforcing. But I'm a huge coffee drinker, so if you give me a Starbucks gift card, I'm going to remember that and be super excited about doing that. The same thing is true for dogs. They have likes and dislikes. So one of my dogs does not like hot dogs. And in fact, she'll just let it drop out of the side of her mouth. She can't even spit it out. She just likes hot dogs that much. But she likes other things. She likes cheese. So you need to decide what it is and discover what it is that your dog finds reinforcing, because they're going to work for getting paid. For an example, if you have a job and you get regular promotions and you get regular raises, you're going to love that job, right? That's something that you're going to show up for week after week. But if you get a job where the pay is really inconsistent and Sometimes there's work, sometimes there's not work, sometimes they put it in your account, sometimes they don't, sometimes they have to write you a check. Like, it's very sketchy, and your work is not going to be the same quality as it would be in a situation where you're getting reinforced. And your dog is exactly the same thing. So your dog's going to learn a lot quicker when you understand what their reinforcers are. And that's going to be also another great thing to discover in your class. But for this homework assignment, what you're going to do is you're going to take 2 different types of cheese. Say you're going to do a really good sharp cheddar, and then over here we're going to have Kraft single processed cheese, and offer them to your dogs and see which one they like. They totally have a preference on that. I had one student who did this, and their dog, their favorite cheese was a very, very expensive Parmesan. And they wish they didn't know that. That was super reinforcing for their dog. But you can also offer meat products. You can do like a little piece of salami and a piece of chicken and see what they prefer and let them have it. It's a really fun game to do with your dogs. So the final exercise that I'd like you to practice this week is I'd like you to find 5 different ways of getting your dog's attention without calling their names. So I call this exercise, Don't Be a Nag. Because we call our dogs names so much. So one of my dog's names is Grizzly. So I'm always like, Grizz, Grizzly, Grizz, Grizzly. And you have to think about if somebody was calling your name over and over again, you sort of turn them out, right? And dogs do the same thing. Like, why is she calling me again? So I want you to think about this week ways to be creative and to get your dog's attention. I've already given you one tip, which is using the squeaky to get your dog's attention. Some dogs respond to a clap. There's all sorts of things that you can do. Some people have a great whistle. I personally cannot whistle, but think about other ways for you to go ahead and get your dog's attention. So those are your 2 homework assignments. If you have any further questions, you're welcome to email us at dogtraining@humanesocietysoco.org. And hope you enjoy your class, and we hope to see you in many more classes. Have a great day.